Hi everyone, and welcome to the webinar on how to cope better with your breakup during COVID-19. Now, I know this is a super stressful time for everyone. Breakups are known as the second most traumatic life experience we go through. Anyway, the second most traumatic life experience after death of a loved one. So it's already way up there on difficult times. But if you're going to go through a breakup and then you add in all the stress that we're all going through right now, of course it's going to put relationships under pressure. Now, there's so many different scenarios and questions that I've been sent in, so many different kinds of things that people are going through right now. So I just wanted to go through some of the different situations I know I've got people on this webinar who have recently broke up. I know there's some of you whose partners have just left. So being single is totally new to you. Some of you are single and in isolation on your own. Some of you have got children, so you're getting used to being a single parent as well. So that is obviously, again, stressful on its own. But now with all the other anxieties, obviously that's adding more pressure. And the other anxieties, I'm talking about being worried about your health, obviously right now, being worried about whether you can get supplies, just getting used to this sort of increased tension and fear that is around, obviously because of COVID-19. Hearing, the news is obviously incredibly stressful, and it's 24/7, so you can hear the anxiety and you can feel it all the time. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to dial down your anxiety and stress and some things you can do to take your control back. We're also going to be talking about people that have decided they're going to go through a breakup. So I've got people right now, and I know you're on here, who have decided that you're going to break up with your partner, but now you can't. So I know I've got some clients who are planning on going their separate ways in the Easter holidays. One of them, her partner was going away on the ski trip, and that was when she was going to move out. Others, their partners didn't know about it, but they had already planned to leave. And obviously now that can't happen. So people that are living in difficult relationships together. So it'd be useful for me, if you are live on here with me, that you could just drop down below in the chat box what kind of situation you're in. Are you in a breakup? Have you decided that you're breaking up but you're living together still? Are you married and just pulling your hair out because this is a really difficult time? Is that what you're going through right now? I've got other people who they thought their relationship was good, but it was based on a dynamic where they live very independent lives. So whether that's you or someone you know, where you are a good couple and it works, but it works because you live independent lives. So maybe you have different sets of friends. Maybe you work a lot, maybe the school routine keeps you distracted, but now you're together, now you're in that house, in those four walls, and having to deal with each other every minute of the day. Now, that's a very different dynamic for that relationship to work on. It's, sometimes the space and the time apart enables the relationship to work a lot better. Now, obviously, if you're in a healthy relationship, this could be a really great opportunity to spend quality time together. So it's not all doom and gloom, but for those that are under pressure, that's what this webinar, that's what I'm talking about today, just to give you some extra advice, to give you some help to help you get through this. So if you can, anyone that's in the chat box, just pop information in and I can make sure I can address it for you. I can see I've got some things coming through there. I'm going to start with how we can start to address the anxiety. Because obviously when you're going through a breakup, it's overwhelming anyway. So you're dealing with potentially heartbreak, conflict, learning to adjust to being single again can be really tricky. And now being in isolation, that is incredibly hard. So one of the things that is super important, and the number one piece of advice I'm going to give you today, is set up your breakup support team around you. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean physically, because maybe if you're on your own, you haven't got people in the home with you, but have those people, and they should include, number one, family and friend members who are supportive. Okay, supportive as in not adding fuel to the flames. For example, not long ago, I had a client who turned up for her first session with me, and when I opened the door, she opened her boot, and in the back of her car in the boot were bin bags, and she had literally gone through and chopped up her ex's clothes and put them in bin bags, just like you kind of hear about or see in the movies. She'd actually done it. Now, her reason for that was that her best friend came over the night before. They were both really angry, and her friend said, come on, let's chop up his clothes and show him what's what, and then you can take them around to the flat where he lives with his girlfriend and dump them outside. Now, that has long-term consequences, and maybe in the moment it felt good, but actually in the long run it's not going to be the best advice. So when we're picking our friends and family to have as our support and our advisors, make sure that they are ones who are not overly emotionally involved, or who aren't going to add fuel to the flames. You know, they're going to give you constructive advice that's actually going to best serve you. So pick somebody like that and make sure that you can contact them, you know, via video, because it's really helpful if you can see somebody rather than it being something that is a remote, like just a phone call, an audio call. Because actually seeing someone again, we need that love and connection. We all need that. We all need love and connection. So actually getting connection, you can get that through a video camera as well. So do try and get them on the video camera and have chats with them if you can. So that's the first person to have in your breakup support team. The second person would be someone who can give you good legal advice. Now, it might be that you're going through a relatively amicable divorce, which is great, but family lawyers are still working, guys. They're all working from home. You know, it is important to start thinking before you decide you're going to get a divorce, to get your legal advice in. You need to understand what you're legally entitled to and how the system works. Now, I'm not a lawyer, although I've had a lot of experience with family lawyers. And so I have a lot of advice to give on picking lawyers, choosing lawyers. They can be extremely expensive. So the best way to do it is to prepare in advance and to make sure that when you go to a meeting or you're talking to them on video call about whatever, about your situation, you're as prepared as you possibly can be, because you don't want to leave that call and then still have questions. So prepare for those questions. Pick someone that suits your budget, number one, and number two, that you get on with, because you will have to share a lot of personal information, maybe intimate details. So make sure that this person you connect with, you get on with, so that you feel comfortable enough to share that information with them. And also ask to meet their junior if you can. I mean, at the moment, obviously working remotely, that might be hard. But actually, you probably have a lot more contact with some of the family lawyers' juniors than you will with them, depending on the way they work. That's actually a good thing, because the partners, or the more senior the lawyer, the more expensive they are. But they charge by the hour. So remember that if you're sending them a letter or you're on the phone to them, they are charging you. So make sure you're aware of what their costs are before you start spending money with them, just to make sure you can budget for that. It's really important. Thank you for your questions coming through. I am reading those as we go, and I will come to them. Thirdly, you need someone in there that you can exercise with. So maybe that's Joe Wicks right now at 9 o'clock in the morning, who's doing the kids videos, which I'm joining in with. I don't know if you are. Or just being able to get outside and do a little exercise, or do it in your living room at the moment, but actually trying to move your body, because actually that is going to put you in a better state of mind. But having someone that holds you to that, so that you don't sit back and not do it, is important. So make sure that you find someone that can support you enough to help you through that exercise, and make sure you actually do it, which is the point of having an exercise buddy in your support group. Another thing that can be worrying, I know I've got questions on this, is how do I sort out the finances? Well, have you got a friend who is good with money, accounting and budgeting, things like that? Because that is the friend that you put in your support team, or you find somebody that can give you that advice. So these are the crucial sort of foundations you need in your support team, as well as a coach or somebody that you can talk to about your emotions, because lawyers and financial advisors, they're not the people to go to help you with the emotional roller coaster you go through. I'm going to tell you a little bit about that now. So when you're going through a breakup, there are 5 stages that we go through. And this is a process called the loss cycle, which was designed by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. And she created what's called the loss cycle for the grieving process. Okay, so what you go through when somebody that you're close to dies. Now, this actually is very similar to the process, if not identical to the process that we go through when we go through a breakup. Now, the reason I want to share this with you is actually getting clarity on where you are right now in your breakup process will help you, because the more clarity you have, the more you're able to make better decisions. A lot of the time when you're in a breakup, you're overwhelmed by emotion. It's like an emotional roller coaster. So one minute you'll be feeling sad, the next minute angry, maybe frustrated, maybe resentful, maybe devastated. You know, it is a roller coaster of emotions. Sometimes you'll be feeling like you can cope and you're doing okay. And other times you'll be thinking like, I just can't do this anymore. So this is all totally normal, by the way. It's all totally normal. Breakups are incredibly, incredibly difficult and challenging times of our lives. So that's why I'm doing this today, just to give you some advice so that you can get a little bit more clarity to help you through this next phase, okay? So the first stage of the loss cycle is denial. So that's when we stick our head in the sand and we pretend it's not going on. So for example, I had a client who I wrote about in my first book, Uncoupling, and she discovered a receipt in her husband's jacket pocket. So quite a classic example. She discovered a receipt for Ann Summers. Now, Ann Summers, for those of you who know, is sort of a little bit on the risky side of the lingerie market. And she was more of an M&S kind of girl, you know, Marks and Spencer's style of woman, if you like. So she was surprised to find that receipt there. And she thought, okay, well, maybe it's for my birthday. So her birthday was coming up in a couple of months. And she thought, okay, well, maybe this will help me. But maybe this will be a present for me. And I'll just wait for my birthday. Her birthday came, her birthday went. No Ann Summers underwear. But Christmas was around the corner. I remember this is the denial phase. She's not talking about it to anyone. She didn't mention it to her mum, who she was super close to. She didn't talk about it to anyone, none of her friends, nobody. So that was her stuffing down those thoughts because she didn't want to face it. And unfortunately, Christmas came and went, and that Ann Summers underwear never showed up for her. So she started then to realize. But for lots of us, we'll think, well, why didn't she say something? Why didn't she say something to him and say, what's this? Well, I found this, what's going on? Now, the interesting reason is because our body will protect us until we're able to deal with things. So I know some of you have experienced this, that you actually find it very difficult to talk out loud about your breakup because it makes it more real. But that is your body's natural defense, guys. It's a natural defense to help you to cope and survive until your body's actually strong enough to actually focus and realize what's going on. So that's why we stuff things down, we don't deal with it, maybe we don't talk about it, we don't do anything other than just keep going. So that's normal. So don't beat yourself up if you're in that phase. It's quite normal, but you will come out of that. Now, the next phase is anger. And anger is when our emotions are heightened. Okay, our energy is heightened. And what that means is that we might be shouting, we might be blaming, we might be saying, why are you breaking up the family? What's wrong with you? We do have more energy at this phase, but also some of us, if your natural tendency isn't to go to anger, maybe you're not an angry person, you find that hard to do. Some of us will go to more stress or irritability. So think about what your style is. Think about what you normally go to instead of anger if you're not experiencing that. And it might be that you are stuffing that down a little bit. And anger is one of the places I see clients are stuck because maybe they haven't fully released that anger and it stays. So that can fester. But that's okay, that's normal. And there are things you can do to help that. The third stage is bargaining. Now, I don't know about you, but I went through a long period of bargaining during my breakup where I was trying to do things to stop what was looking like it was going to happen. So, for example, I would do anything, and this is the bargaining phase, you do anything to stay where you are with what you know rather than face the breakup. So you might start wearing smarter clothes, making more of an effort with your appearance. You might start cooking your partner's favorite meal. You might start laughing more at their jokes or making more of an effort generally. You might start trying to create date nights and doing certain things to keep the status quo. Because if you can see that a breakup might be coming, even though your relationship might be horrible, and this is the really interesting part. Human beings don't like change. We don't like change, which is why this current situation of COVID-19 is sending everyone into a bit of a spin, because it's massive change to our lifestyle and what we know. And that's the same with breakups. We don't like the thought of change. So we tend to want to do everything we can to preserve where we're at, even though it might be hideous. But the thing is, we know, we have total certainty, don't we, about where we're at. And we know we can survive, even though it's painful. But it's better in a lot of ways for in this bargaining phase to feel like, well, I know this is this bad, I know I can cope, and it's better than stepping out into the unknown. So that is the next, that is what we do. That's the bargaining phase. So you do anything you can to maintain the position you're in and not face the breakup. So the next stage is called depression. Now, I do see a lot of clients who come to me and say, Sarah, I've been seeing my GP and he's told me that I'm depressed. So that's it, I'm depressed. Now, of course, guys, you're going to be depressed. This is the end of a relationship that meant so much to you that it is natural, and it is a natural part of the healing process to go through that. So going through that depression is like grieving the end of the relationship. And you have to kind of go through that to get out the other side. You can't skip that. So it's okay to cry. It's okay to release those emotions. It's okay to have some duvet days, stay in bed, grieve that. That's okay. That's quite normal. And you need that to move you through. So please don't worry about that. But it doesn't mean that it's forever, okay? Because the next phase is called acceptance. And acceptance is where you get to the point where you take off those rose-tinted glasses. You know that the relationship is coming, it is done. You're not going back, whether that's because you don't want to go back anymore or you know your partner's not coming back, but you've accepted it. But a lot of people get stuck at acceptance because they can't see the future. So it's either the future looking forward is like a black hole, or it's like a blank canvas. So you see what I mean? It's either a black hole or a blank canvas. So what we need to do is throw as much color up there about the options for the future. And that's what coaching does. It helps you create that compelling future and start to look at what's coming up in the future so that you can move towards that. So that's really important. So getting unstuck is important. I know that I've got questions here from people who are stuck and finding it really hard. So I'm going to go through some of your questions that I've got here. So one of the questions is, I'm not going to do any names, but I'm talk about, so her husband left the family home very, very recently, like less than a week ago. And it's been a really harsh blow to this lady, and she's got 2 young boys as well. They're all very upset and broken, and having to watch them process this all the time when they can't get their support of their friends. So this is really about a mother who's really trying to support her boys through this breakup when they can't get out of the house, and it's been a real sudden thing, which is incredibly difficult. So she feels abandoned, and they feel abandoned by their father when really they needed him around for this time. So my question is, how do you comfort and support the young innocents during a time when all our lives are in a state of upheaval? It will be hard anyway, but the added stress of social distancing and isolation is making it more challenging. So obviously a really difficult situation. And again, when you're right in the early days of a breakup, as you know, it is incredibly difficult because you're overwhelmed by emotions and you're not thinking straight. So that is a very difficult time to support younger people through. So they're 9 and 12, so they are very young. So all you can do is reassure them that it's going to be okay. Reassure them that it's nothing to do with them, because as kids, sometimes they join the dots and they don't join them correctly. They might think it was something they did. Maybe they had an argument with their dad, or maybe something happened which makes them think that potentially it could have been something they did or said. Now, you know, reassurance is important, giving them lots of love. And I would suggest that, because they're 9 and 12, you can still interact with them in a way that you can play games together. You can do things like that just to take their mind off it. Dealing with anxiety, I mean, these with a breakup or with COVID-19, or combine that together. You know, how do you manage that? Now, I always talk about there is a dial that we have in our brains. So we control how we feel. You control how you feel right now. Now, I know a lot of you are saying, Sarah, don't be ridiculous. They've done this to me. My ex has done this. So I'm feeling like this. Okay, so the thing is that we choose how we react to something. Now, we might have trained ourselves to react in a certain way. So you might have trained yourself, for example, that when your ex contacts you, you get angry. And it might be justifiable anger. I'm not saying it's not. You know, these situations are all different. Everyone has different breakups, different types of emotions, and your personalities will all affect how you respond to your ex. But the important key that is true for you all is that we control how we feel. Okay, so imagine in your head you have like a dial so that you can turn up and down. And say, for example, when you, maybe you're feeling angry, so you're at 10 out of 10 on anger. You have the ability to turn that dial down. Now, even if you shift it from a 10 to an 8, say, that doesn't sound like such a big movement, but I promise you, turning from a 10 to an 8 makes a massive difference on what you are able to go through and do after that. So, for example, you might be able to get out of bed. You might be able to parent slightly better. You might be able to react without shouting. So being able to control the dial is really important. So I talk a lot about dialing down the negative emotions. So things you can do to dial down those emotions is, if you're going through heartbreak, for example, write a list of everything that you don't like about the relationship. A list of everything that you don't like about the relationship that didn't serve you. Because one of the things we do as human beings is we romanticize about our exes and the past and the relationship that we had. So sometimes that keeps us stuck because our brains will go back to the happy times, the romantic times, the holidays, the special moments, those things. Now, we don't want to destroy those memories because they are important, but also we need to not allow our brains to trick us. We need to take control of what we're thinking, control of our thoughts, and start to see also the things that weren't great, the things that didn't make you feel good, the things that frustrated you or annoyed you. Now, for some of you, writing that list might be hard. For others, you're going to sit down and just write reams and reams and reams, and that will be easy. But it's a good way to shift your focus, because one of the things, getting clarity about where you're at is important, but also too, shifting your focus onto something that is more constructive and is going to help you move forward is really, really essential. So, for example, we're talking about COVID-19. There's a lot of anxiety around at the moment. So we're watching the news because we want to learn. But how much news are you watching? And where are you getting your information from? Number one, important, you need to follow the safety regulations. You need to take the precautions. So get the latest updates. Absolutely, make sure you're getting the information right now that you need, because this is essential. However, when you've got the information you need, get out. Do not have it playing all day long in the background. I know some of you are going, it's on in the background right now. I know it is. We all do it because we want to feel connected, but actually the anxiety and the worry is increased by having it on all the time. So, and especially if you've got children in the house, guys, they will take it in a different way, and it can help, and they can spiral into panic. So as can adults, have a think about how you react to stress normally as well. Because if we're talking about how you are going to deal with stress right now, then you are different to everybody else on this call. And there's lots of people here watching right now. Thank you all for joining. I'm going to get to your questions too. We all deal differently with stress. Some of you can take it on, and I know I can see some of the names up here, and I know some of you personally, and I know that you're good at dealing with stress because you take it on and you kind of compartmentalize it, and then you get on with life. Okay, but you might have friends or partners or people, children that don't react that way. Maybe they are highly sensitive, or maybe they react by getting tearful or panicky. Maybe they get frightened. Maybe they shut down. Maybe they can't sleep. Maybe they overeat. I don't know. But what is their strategy? And what is your strategy? Because a lot of my coaching is taking what you're doing unconsciously and the patterns that we run and making them conscious. Because once you're aware of what you do, of what your behavior is under times of pressure and stress, then you can take control of it and decide, am I going to continue with that coping strategy, or am I going to do something different? And let's face it, these strategies are learned from our individual lives and influences. There might be your parents. For example, I have a client who, Mark, who was from a Greek background, and him and his family used to smash plates and shout and rant and do all those typical Greek things when they argued. And he grew up in that environment where it was okay to throw things, it was okay to shout, but the number one cardinal rule was you never left the room during an argument. You would stay there and you would fight it out until you resolved it. And that was okay. That was loving, and that was the most respectful thing to do. Whereas his wife that he ended up marrying, Sarah, came from a very different background. Her parents rarely raised their voices, and if they had an argument, they would both leave the room to think about it and come back, and even sleep on it sometimes. I know. And then come back into the room. So that caused a problem. Can you imagine when they come together and they're married, they've got different ways of resolving that anger and those conflicts. So have a think about how you resolve conflict, how you deal with anxiety. What is your strategy? Did you get it from your parents? Are you repeating something that maybe doesn't really work for you? You know, does shutting down and not talking to friends and family help your situation? Because right now we need to be very aware of how we cope with things and putting coping mechanisms in place. And just getting that clarity and being more aware helps, okay? But also shifting your focus onto the things that are going to help you. So shift it away from the constant news feeds, get the information, understand what you must and must not do, but then shut it down. And then focus on putting that energy into something that is going to make a difference. Now, maybe that's homeschooling the kids, God forbid, that is incredibly stressful. Or maybe that is doing some exercise. Maybe that's getting through some of the jobs you've got listed to do that you've never done. Maybe you've got to clear the loft out or the garage, or you've got a cupboard that you need to sort through, or maybe there's some paperwork that you've put off. Now maybe this is a good time to sort out your filing cabinet or do a deep clean of your fridge. I don't know. But what is it? If you give yourself a plan and a list of things to do, because we all feel better when we're achieving things, and shifting your focus onto something else that's more constructive is definitely going to help you move forward. Dialing down that stress, refocusing your brain. Another really important thing to do would be, and this is going to answer some of your questions here, another really important thing is to take control, again, of the questions you're asking yourself. Because did you know that your brain has to come up with an answer to a question that you ask it? Okay, so we're going to play a game. Okay, I'm going to ask you a question, and you must not, and I don't want you to think of the answer to the question. Okay, if you've got it, don't think of the answer to this question. Okay, what is the capital of France? You see, you kind of have to go there to not do it. That's how our brain works. It goes, oh, okay, I'll go there, and then I shouldn't do that, so I'm not going to do it. But you've done it. So your brain will always find an answer. So I'll ask you a different kind of question. Again, don't think of the answer. Don't think of a blue elephant. You see, your brain has to go there to then not do something. So, for example, how is this useful for you right now in taking control of this? If your brain is saying, what if I get COVID-19? What if I can't cope with my breakup? What's wrong with me? Why doesn't he love me anymore? Why has she left me? Why are my kids driving me insane? Those questions, your brain goes, a question, great, okay, I'm going to come up with some answers. And it will come up with answers, because as we've just shown you, it will find answers. Now, they might not be the right answers, but they will definitely not be high quality answers. Because if you feed in to your brain a disempowering question, like what's wrong with me, or why doesn't he love me, or you know, why aren't I enough? Why aren't I good enough? Classic one. Then your brain will come up with an answer. Now that could be anything. Well, maybe you're a bit overweight. Well, maybe you're not that funny. Well, maybe you're just not as attractive as the next person. Or it will come up with answers. Okay, it will, as you know. Okay, but they're not going to be helpful answers. In fact, they're disempowering answers and will keep you stuck. So you feed in disempowering questions, you get disempowering answers. So you stay stuck. Now, what I want for you is to take control of that and start to ask more empowering questions. So what could they be, for example? They could be, What can I do right now to make this a little bit better? Your brain will start to come up with answers. Now, it might say something that you can't do right now because of the regulations. So it might come up with something you think, no, that's not quite right. But it's going to give you a lot better answers and options than asking a disempowering question. So the trick is to take control of what's going on up here, that little voice in your head, and start to ask more empowering questions. So how can I cope with this right now better? What can I do to relieve some of this stress right now? What can I do that's going to put a smile on my face? You know? So this is what I mean about taking control and dialing down the anxiety or the stress or the heartache, you know, because you can control what's going on in here. And a lot of us think we can't because this is happening to us, at us, and we spend our life being battered and in reaction to that. And actually what I'm suggesting to you is that you can do something about it by just taking a bit more control over what you're putting into your brain. Now, I know it's not straightforward to do straight away and shift into that. But all these techniques are small, simple techniques. That's what I teach. And that's what I train my coaches. I train breakup and divorce coaches. I know some of them are on here. So I shout out to my coaches. But this is what I train coaches to do so they can help their clients too. And this is what I share with my clients. You know, you can be whatever you want to be. It's not about being restricted by what other people have told you. But a lot of the time we take on other people's beliefs. So maybe you had parents who had a certain way of parenting, and you may find that you've adopted that, or you may find that you've gone the complete opposite way and you're doing something completely different to your parents. But looking at why you do the things you do, because unconsciously we pick up these coping strategies. So maybe, for example, I have a client at the moment who deals with anxiety by literally having panic attacks. And she grew up watching her mother have panic attacks. So she learned that that was the way to cope, through no fault, malicious intention by her mum at all. But that's what her mum did, because guess what? Her mum coped that way. So what have you picked up as a strategy to cope? Because that's your survival mechanism and that's what's worked for you so far. But maybe now you're in a position where you've got your own kids and they're watching you, remember, and they're watching how you deal with these things and and they're learning because you are their role model. So if you're coping by panicking, by getting upset, by saying negative things out loud about potentially what might happen, negative questions, gosh, are we all going to get it? How, you know, putting that fear out there, that is going to trigger your kids to learn that too. So what I'm asking you to do is just be consciously aware and have a really good think about your coping mechanism with anxiety, because yours isn't the same as the next person or mine or a friend. You've got your own coping mechanisms for anxiety and stress based on your, what I call, map of the world. So the influences, your beliefs, your morals, your values. Maybe if you grew up in a particularly religious or cultural environment, maybe your parents were strong, maybe you had a teacher who massively influenced you. You know, who influenced you and how have they influenced you? And is that serving you? Because guess what? If it's not, you can stop that behavior and adopt a different one. I know that sounds weird, but it's true. You know, you don't have to do things in a certain way. So I also want to talk about body language, because that is a very quick way of shifting your state in a heartbeat. You can change how you feel in a heartbeat, but you have to make the decision and you have to take action. As with all these tools that I'm sharing with you, it has to come from you. You have to step up and you have to take action. So how does this work? Well, think about how you stand or sit when you're feeling good, relaxed, calm, okay? How does that look? So for most of you, it would probably be maybe, you know, chilled out, shoulders down. You might be moving slightly, you'd be breathing calmly. And then I want you to go to how you sit or stand when you're anxious. And I want you to really note what that looks like. So it might be that your face is tenser, it might be that your shoulders are up a bit, maybe your breathing's a bit shallower, maybe you're looking down, maybe you're kind of in like this. So looking at your body language is really important, because I want you to learn that when your body goes into that anxiety state or that heartbreak state or whatever that negative emotion you want to get away from, I want you to open up your body language and go back to that state that you know you go to when you feel calm. And the trick is, when you're doing it, you don't feel calm. So you're acting as if. So that's why you've got to look at what you would do if you were calm, and then just shift your body language, because what it does is it sends a signal to your brain to say, I'm feeling relaxed, or I'm feeling more in control, or I'm feeling like I can cope with this better. So again, it's dialing down that emotional intensity, because it automatically sends that message to your brain so that you will feel better. It will dial it down. Even if it's just 1 or 2 notches on the dial, it will make a difference. As does putting a massive smile on your face, putting your chin up, smiling, and even doing 5-star jumps. I know you're going, oh my God, just got mad. But no, 5-star jumps is a great bolt to your body to change your state instantly, because you can't feel the same way with a smile on your face doing star jumps as you did when you were like this, thinking, oh my God, how am I going to get through this? Now, obviously, there's no magic one to fix it all, but I'm giving you lots of little tools that you can stack together, because once you start taking control of your brain and starting to decide how you want to react and following through, you'll start to feel more empowered and able to cope with whatever life throws at you. And these are all life skills that you can use to get through. And you can teach these to your kids, and they will soak this up like sponges. But it works best if you are doing them as a role model, rather than telling them what to do and you doing something else. That isn't going to work. You've got to step up and lead the way. Okay, so I'm going to look at some of these questions now. Going through a divorce, living together. Divorce is on hold as courts are closed, I guess. He is moving countries next week with no agreement on money. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are in this sort of limbo situation right now, which is that their breakup or their divorce is going through, but currently they're stuck I mean, you're saying that he's moving countries next week. I don't even know that that's possible right now. The challenge is, if you're living in the same home as someone who's driving you slightly insane for whatever reason, I would suggest that you create a safe space in your home. So like a sanctuary area, or you know, just a corner of a room maybe, that if you go over there and you sit there, then you've got an agreement that that is your safe space. Maybe you've got a room that you can just go and shut the door. But everybody needs their own safe space, as in space where they're not going to be interrupted, where no one's going to come in and ask you questions. So actually, when you're stuck in a confined space with people, it is really helpful to allocate yourself a little sanctuary in there that is yours, and just to have the agreement, if you go there, you get at least 10-15 minutes on your own without being interrupted, because you will all need that to just regroup and just breathe. Breathing, again, is super important. In through the nose, holding it, and then out through the mouth. Just repeating that really simple exercise will again help you to dial down those emotions, as will exercise. And I know that it's difficult sometimes, but if you're in the home, but if you can do some kind of exercise, then that again will help you take control of what's going on here and manage your anxiety. Again, family lawyers are working just remotely. So if you do need advice, there is advice that you can get. Let's see, another question here. Solo parenting my children and disagreeing with my ex regarding how he's handling this. He wants to continue to see his girlfriend and move between houses. Yes, so, you know, ultimately we can't control what other people are going to do. I know we want to, but this is the same in life for anything. You can't control other people's actions, other people's words, what they're doing. We just can't. But what you can control is how you react to it. Now, obviously, with this, we want to keep our kids as safe as possible. So hopefully, if you've got an amicable situation, or that, you know, you can have an amicable discussion, then you can talk about it rather than being heated and going at it like, what are you talking about? And it being about the girlfriend. Make it about the kids. Just say, I am genuinely concerned about the children. I'm genuinely concerned about how, you know, how to keep them safe. And as their parents, that has to be our top priority. For me, it definitely is. How do you see this affecting them? Do you think it could put them at increased risk? I understand that this is what you want to do. How does this work? How do you see this working? Because it's making me anxious, it's making me worried, and we need to work as a team here if we can. You know, by trying to do that, that would help. And with amicable, rational, logical people, that will work, and you will be able to come up with some kind of plan. As long as you're not making it as it's about the girlfriend. It's not about the girlfriend, it's about the children. If you bring it back to the children and what's in their best interest, that helps to de-intensify that situation. There is another scenario, though, where you've got a partner who you can't talk to about those kind of things, and it becomes very, very difficult. Because you guys just don't get on, there's conflict. Maybe they're not as rational as you. Maybe they live in a world that it's all about them and they want to do something, so they're going to do it. Now, that is a much more difficult situation. And really, at that stage, it's individual. You have to work out what you can do to protect the best interest of your children. Maybe take some legal advice. I know there's some family lawyers on Twitter at the moment who are talking a lot about advice that the government is giving about sticking to court orders and how to protect your children. So do have a look at that, because I'm not a lawyer, I don't give legal advice. So do have a look at that. But I think if you can make it more about the kids rather than about each other or the girlfriend, try and take any blame, accusation, and animosity out of your communications. No tone to anything you're saying or writing. That will really help you get an agreement where getting an agreement is possible. Someone else here: left my marriage this time last year, went through mediation, financial order with the judge and awaiting approval, left my house and living in a flat alone. Coped this year by keeping busy, dinners with friends, trips away. Now feeling alone and fighting the urge to run back, call my ex for familiarity and his company, struggling to let go and focus on a future with all this uncertainty. Yeah, absolutely normal. Okay, this is a normal reaction. Please don't think it's not. But what we need to do is put you back in control, because your ex, I don't know the details of this. And by the way, if anyone wants me to get into coaching you through your individual situation, obviously you can drop me an email, sarah@sarahdavidson.com, and we can arrange some one-to-one coaching if that's what you want. But I'm trying to give as much free advice as I can in these webinars. So with what I know about that, the situation is, of course, when we're panicking like this, it's normal human nature to want to go back and connect with those people who we had that connection with before. Like going back to the old support team who's not there right now because that's not their place anymore, but we haven't quite moved into establishing a new support team. So what I would suggest is that you try and direct that energy and find other friends and family that you can talk to. Now, you're living on your own, and I know that right now that's difficult. So these kind of things, joining in with webinars, getting out on all the dating apps are still up and running, but obviously we can't go on dates right now, okay? So what you could do, though, is virtual meetings with people and have chats with them. And I know that a lot of people are using them as a social networking thing now, and it's quite fun. Now, obviously, these people aren't going to be your rock during this, but hopefully you've got friends and family there who you can turn to. So when you get that feeling that you want to phone him, please have someone on your breakup support team that you can phone instead. Because this is another place, Sarah, where I would get you to write your list as well of things that weren't right about that relationship and why you left, because it says here that you left your marriage. I'm not sure if that's, it might just be because you're doing bullet points, but you've done really well to get this far. And just think about, if you go back, you're literally rewinding time and look at everything you've done. And this is normal to be at that point where you're like, oh, it's easy to go back. But actually, you left for a reason and you're here for a reason. And this is a tough time, but it opens up new opportunities. So maybe instead of focusing on him, focus on creating new connections with people online, because that's what we can do right now. We've got more time to do that. And reaching out to friends, other friends. And you can still do dinners on videos, right? You can invite someone over to dinner. You sit down. I'm having a glass of wine with my neighbor across the fence tonight, which is going to be great fun because I love it a bit. But obviously, she's got the house next door. She's going to climb on her son's climbing frame. I'm going to climb on my son's tree house, and we're going to have a talk more than 2 meters apart across the fence line with a glass of wine. So there's things you can do. So be creative to come up with ideas. There's still getting that connection because you need it, especially if you're on your own in isolation, and that is important. So these things, being creative whilst respecting those regulations and distancing regulations is important. So I hope that's helped. But you know, you've come so far, Sarah. I don't want to see you moving back, because you know, you don't want to unpick that because of this. In fact, use that time to challenge, to finding 10 new friends online. You know, set yourself these projects, set yourselves these challenges so that you can actually use it to move forward. And at the end of this period, you're going to have new connections from this time, which actually might be better friends, you know, or networking online right now through, you know, bonding with people during difficult times, and actually form stronger relationships than you think. Okay. Okay, let's have a look at some of these questions. Yeah, someone's asking me if I'm considering doing my retreat on Zoom. Well, I actually have recorded my retreat to video. So those people who are thinking about, who are going through a breakup and really struggling, you can get, I do run breakup recovery retreats. They're 2-day workshops. Obviously, we can't do those anymore for the time being. But I did have one for June, but I moved it. So I'm not sure when. It probably be sort of October, November time this year. They are fabulous, but obviously we can't do them right now. So what I'm thinking about, I've done is I've recorded it all anyway to video, and it's called Breakup Breakthrough, and it's a lot cheaper on video, obviously, and it's discounted at the moment on my website, saradavison.com. So if you are going through a breakup and struggling, it's a great time to do an online program where you can watch videos. There's some exercises you can do as well. There's a little online manual you can download and print out as you go, and that will give you support as well and help you to get through this. It's going to give you this kind of information I'm giving you here, but in a tailored way, so you can do some exercise and make sure you master it and work your way through it. So that is going to be super helpful as well. So let me just check, make sure I'm covering everything here that I wanted to do. Yeah, okay, yeah, then another one of my techniques I wanted to share with you before we come to an end. If you do have any other questions, pop them in. Thanks, Scott, for your comments. If you do have any other questions, do pop them down, because I do want to see them. I'm getting some coming through on Instagram as well. So sometimes when you're stuck in a situation that's tough, I've got a technique it's called Flip It, which is in my book, Uncoupling. This is available as audio as well. So if you're at home and you don't really like reading, you can download that as audio. And the Split, which is my newest book, Breakup to Breakthrough in 30 days or less, that's available on Amazon. You can buy it as a hard copy book, or you can also get it on Kindle version, and I put it up there just for £1, because some people really, you know, want the information, but makes it very accessible to everybody. And it's basically, the Split is a 30-day plan to get you from breakup to breakthrough. So it's something to do each day for 30 days, which, given the isolation, might be a good plan to get you going. If you wanted to get the videos, Breakup Breakthrough on my website, they are also available too. But one of the techniques that I use, which is really powerful and super simple, is Flip It. Flip It. Now, it was called something else, actually, but the editor of this book, a little brown, she said, no, we're going to call it Flip It, Sarah, not something else it is. So what it is, that's how it works, is you think about the situation that we're in and you find something good about it. Super simple, but I'm getting you to change your focus, okay? Remember we talked earlier about shifting your focus. Your focus, sometimes we get caught up on telling our story, right? And every time we tell our story, we re-anchor ourselves, we re-experience all the negative emotions from that story. So, for example, I had a client that came to my clinic, and she'd never been to Ascot, which is where my clinic is, and she turned up and she was sobbing. And she said, Sarah, it was the first time I met her, and she said, look, I haven't been to Ascot for a very long time, and I've got a really good friend who moved in not long ago, and I went to see her. And I updated her on the whole story of the breakup and what he did and how it happened and how I felt. She said, it's really upset me. And guys, this is normal. If you keep telling your story, you're going to re-anchor to all those emotions, reattach to all those emotions that your story brings up. Your brain goes, oh, I remember this. I feel pain. I feel hurt. I feel let down. I feel betrayed. I feel sick. I feel panicky. So all those things will keep you stuck, keep you in that cycle of re-experiencing. So we have to stop telling our story. You have to stop telling your sad story, guys. And I'm not saying sad in a derogatory way, I'm saying sad because it is, but please stop saying it. Because if you're anything like most of my clients, you'll tell it to the butcher, the hairdresser, the girl at the checkout, anyone that will listen. And so you're constantly reconnecting to those emotions, those negative emotions. And again, if we're taking control of this and dialing down those negative emotions, it's really important that you don't keep reliving them by telling the story over and over again. Okay, so the key here is to take your control, stop telling your story so that you don't keep experiencing those negative emotions. So I hope that makes sense. Sarah's put here, bought your book, The Split. I'm a doctor, so working hard in the NHS. Well, thanks so much for all the hard work. We're going to do the exercises in my downtime. All your videos are very helpful. Oh, thank you. Look, you know, there's a lot of people going through tough times right now, and what I'm trying to do is just give you as much information as I can. Whilst it being difficult, we're just getting little stories and little bits of your situations, but trying to give you the techniques and tools to cope with this. Obviously, if you do need more specialized help, then do reach out to me, because I'm doing video sessions, coaching sessions all day today with clients online. So that is obviously an option if you do want more. But do watch my videos on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube, because I do post up and offer support and advice as well through those channels. So I hope you found this useful. I hope that it's helped you. If you do have any other questions, then do send them through. I will be doing more webinars. I think I'm going to set up a regular daily live feed that I do so that I can help as many people as possible. So do still send in your questions and I will answer them during those times, and watch my social media channels for updates on that. In the meantime, please stay safe. Know that you can control this. Practice it. It's work in progress. Don't beat yourself up if you don't get it right the first time. These techniques can take a little while because it's going against the grain, okay? It's going against what you're naturally doing. So normally you might go into panic or tearful mode or angry mode. It's about becoming consciously aware and then taking your control back. And even if the first couple of times you just notice what you're doing is making you uncomfortable, it is reacting the same way, then you change it, or even you don't, but you look back and go, oh, I know what I did there. This is you becoming more consciously aware and taking control of your brain. So don't beat yourself up. This is a bit of a process, and there's a lot of anxiety around. So you're gonna get lots of chance to practice all these techniques over the next few weeks. But do reach out, please stay safe, and I really look forward to seeing you all again really soon. Mwah. Lots of love to you and your loved ones, and take care. Bye-bye.